And then we're going to go live just very shortly. Any last thoughts, questions?
No, I'm good.
Jennifer's
Ready to go.
Okay, we're going to go live on Facebook. Just give me a second here. Oh, great. Did you hear that?
No.
Oh, okay. Let's hear the right page. Our story's on hold. Okay, we are going live. And here we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Traei. I am the founder and author of Her Stories Untold, a global book project sharing different empowering and inspiring stories of women around the globe from all walks of life. The reason this project was created was because I realized that there were so many women out there that have stories to share, journeys that have been taken, but not realizing the significance and the importance of each of their journeys. So this project is open to all women and transgender women in the globe. If you have a story of your journey of how you came to be whom you are today and where you are, whatever you're doing, please do check out www.herstoryuntold.com. Again, the purpose of this global book project is to empower, uplift, and inspire other women. Now, before we begin our talk today, I want to acknowledge the land on which I live and work is the traditional and unceded territory of the Coquitlam Nation and lies within the shared traditional territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Katsiut, Musqueam, Squamish, Kikit, and Stolo First Nations. Very importantly, I want to warmly welcome everyone joining us here today, our very special guest, Jennifer. Hello, Jennifer.
Hello. And thank you so much for inviting me to join you today. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you join us, and I appreciate your time. It's such an honor to have you, a very empowering, inspiring woman. That's yeah. And today we're here to, really talk about how to thrive through life at any time, with your transformation expertise, and using swagger, right?
Absolutely.
So I think, my first question is, what made you feel the most empowering about your sharing your story? Because you wrote a book. The book is called Swagger, right?
Claim your swagger. Yes. Stop surviving and start thriving. So it's interesting that you asked that question, because I would venture to guess there are other people out there that might feel the same way that I do about that your story really isn't that significant, that you kind of feel like a little bit of imposter syndrome, if you've heard of that.
Yeah.
And where you feel, well, why would anybody care about my story? Why would anybody want to listen to my story? And the good news is about this book in particular, it's not just my story. I share stories from real life people just like you and I, who have also gone through their own journeys and trials and tribulations in life to help illustrate some of the concepts that I talk about. But one of the things that helped me overcome this notion of imposter syndrome is my purpose and my desire to help other people. And I know how important it is to be able to share a little bit about yourself and your own life that people can relate to, that people can connect with you. And the more that you can create that connection, the better your message really resonates with people. And so that was part of what helped me really get over that, is my true desire and passion and my purpose in really helping people to create this change and transformation in their own lives. That helped me overcome any fear or discomfort I had with sharing my story.
Thank you. And that sounds really, really empowering, because I think, in finding yourself and coming to terms to wanting to share with other people, I think you almost have to overcome a point in life where you're at most vulnerable, right? Which was what you were talking about. That imposter is like, who am I? Why am I here? It's almost kind of a existential crisis, identity crisis, right? And then, you know, having to find the courage to overcome that. So I think I'm interested in finding out, like, was there a particular moment, you know, that took place where you suddenly decided that, you know, hey, I'm going to write a book and I want to do this. I want to transform and help other people.
Well, I've been thinking about the book actually for a really long time. It's going to sound crazy. I do write about this in the book. The initial concept for the book, I came about or started thinking about it back in 2008. That's like forever ago. Now, I needed to go through a lot of things to be able to get to the right place to be able to write the book. And a lot of things needed to transpire for that to happen. And I also believe that there's that phrase, timing is everything. And there's a quote by Steve Chandler that I absolutely love. And he says he used to coach clients all the time that were talking about doing something. I really want to do this, but I don't know how, or I really would love to do this, but I'm not sure how. And he used to tell them, well, then you're not ready, because when you're ready, you'll just start doing. And that was kind of how it happened for me. I had been talking about this and talking about it for quite a long time. And I finally realized that unless I did something to create it, I would still be talking about it years from now. And so I needed to take drastic steps. I needed to quit my full-time job and focus all of my time and energy on making this a reality and getting it done instead of just talking about it. And another quote that I love, and it's not attributed to anybody, but it's just one of the ones that it really resonates with me. The best way to get something done is to begin. So I had to just start doing and stop talking.
That is so well captured and so beautiful. And I think that really much aligns with her stories on Untold, because it's not about the whole, you know, summary of things or situations or event or, you know, things that you experience. It's more about what essence that you can take and learn from, right? So I did read your book, so it's a great book. It is not because I'm having you speak here live today that I'm saying it's a great book. It is a fantastic book. It is a book that you keep in your library. Okay, you can't read it in one shot. You could, but you're going to need it later because you're going to come back to it at different phases and different points of your life to do exactly what you said, to reflect, to analyze, right? To learn. And, you know, in alignment with what you were sharing previously, I found a quote in there that I loved. It says, tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. And involve me and I learn really speaks loudly to me, because I think involve me isn't actually always about us speaking to somebody else saying involve me. It could just be speaking to your true self, asking yourself to involve yourself so that you actually learn, so that you can take that next step to move forward, right? So
I love that. I love the way you interpreted that, because the whole concept of the book really is around experiential learning. The research really suggests that we learn best when our voices are heard more than somebody else's, when we come up with the solutions and answers on our own instead of being told what they are. And so if you think back to some of the best lessons you've learned in your life, they may, in fact, be some of the most painful lessons you've learned in your life, but chances are you learned them by doing, not because of what somebody told you. For example, if you burned your hand on a hot stove when you were younger, your brain cataloged that information and realized and helped you understand touching the stove when it's hot is not a good thing. It hurts. I don't want to do that again. That's a really simple example of experiential learning, or which is a fancy way of just saying learning by doing. Now, we can learn by doing in a number of different ways. You can learn by doing it yourself through your real life experiences, which are often the most powerful and the most painful. And you can also learn through case studies, learning from others, what others have done through their experiences. And you can also learn by experimenting, you know, in an experimental or simulated environment. Think of like a flight simulator. You know, you can make mistakes and nobody gets hurt. So there are multiple ways, but that is the real crux of what I tried to do in this book is design it around putting you as the reader in the heart of the process so that you can learn by doing and have much more powerful and impactful experiences as a result.
Yeah, and I love all that. And I think it's what keeps popping up in my head just now as you're sharing all of this is that the word courage comes to
Yes.
mind, right? And you have mentioned that oftentimes the things that teaches us the biggest lessons in our life are things that we're fearful of, just like that touch to, the heat, right? And being scared of that, right? And then it takes courage and time to reflect, come to a state where you can reflect and then analyze and learn from that situation, so that not that you'll ever redo it again, but how to do it safely, kind of thing, so to speak, in that particular example that you shared, right? So I think that's really powerful. And it just having the momentum and the courage to keep on going, kind of thing, right? So I think that's just beautiful.
Well,
So
I love the idea of you bringing up courage as well, because I do believe that taking this journey of personal development and self-growth takes courage, because a lot of times we don't necessarily want to look inside. It could be scary to look inside, to reflect on some of our past experiences, to try and learn and analyze and then learn from them. That's a scary thing. And sometimes we need that help of that, what I call relentless curiosity, and being courageous enough to say, you know what? No, I can do this. And what I get to on the other side is so going to be worth it.
yeah.
That you're willing to kind of go, okay, this could be a bit iffy. I don't know what's going to happen. We might come across some very challenging things in the process, but let's try. Let's give it a go and see what happens.
And I think this kind of brings to mind, embracing challenging things,
Right.
embracing curiosity, and kind of looking forward to things with excitement. Because I think the sensation of being nervous can be similar to being very excited about something, right? So yeah, I started doing that actually. I think last year, where there are situations that was scary or nervous, and I'd be like, okay, I'm excited about this.
I think that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
You can create, the wonderful thing is, and this is something that's so important, and I know I talk a lot about it in the book, but you can choose the way you think. So you can choose to be afraid and let fear keep you from experiencing and learning and growing and developing, or you can choose, as you just said, to get excited about it, to say, wow, what might I, the art of the possible, what could we figure out and discover along the way? And isn't that worth going, taking the step and actually embarking on the journey?
And I think I hear the word worth, right? So I
Yes.
want to shift back, and focus on self-worth, right? So it's about knowing who you are and being comfortable in your own skin, and how one doesn't give up. You mentioned, there was a point that you mentioned in your book. It said, never give up no matter how dire the situations became for certain individuals, right? Like unimaginable circumstances. And I think you gave a couple of examples, and one that came to mind was like Oprah, right?
Right.
Yeah. You mentioned that, Oprah grew up in poverty and suffered through years, fortunately, sexual abuse, which began when she was only 9 years old. And she got in trouble with the law, was on a path to destruction. But the key point here, the concept of worth, self-worth, or your self-identity, she didn't give up, right? So against all odds, she's a live example right there. She's figured out a way to continue her education, right? Finish her studies and start a career in broadcasting.
Right.
And today she runs this, of course, everybody knows Oprah. She runs this media empire, is one of the wealthiest entertainers in the world. And she invites different people from all walks of life to speak. And I think that's so empowering. So almost like embracing your fears and turning it into curiosity, and then letting it evolve, expand, and grow. And then to a point where you're able to help a lot of people, make a huge impact, right? So
No, there's a couple things that you touch on there, and there's one is obviously around self-worth. And when we go through traumatic experiences like the one you described, that Oprah went through when she was just young, really quite young, but we've all had our own traumatic experiences that we've survived in our lives. And how do we not lose ourselves in those experiences? And how do we really embrace the fact that those experiences we can learn something from? We actually can become stronger for them. Not to say that we shouldn't allow ourselves to feel what it feels like to have gone through them, but at the same time, being able to look back and say, what did I learn from that experience? What is one thing that has now occurred in my life that would not have happened had that experience not taken place, and that I can now be grateful for, which I know we're going to talk a little bit about as well, but not losing who you are and not being defined by that experience. And something else that you talk about as well that you raised in that example is perseverance.
Yes.
Every person that I talked about in those examples is all about perseverance. They didn't give up regardless of what situations they faced. They kept going, and they were rewarded at the end. And to your point, they have now gone on to do amazing things and touch millions of lives. And not to say that we're all going to be able to do that, but just the fact of keep going without giving up, that is incredibly, incredibly important.
I think the perseverance part, I hear being able to empathize, you don't have to go out and about, acquire certain experiences, exactly the same path, because I can assure you, based on, my life experience and the stories I hear, no experience is the same.
No,
Even
absolutely not. That's part of what makes us unique.
Yeah.
That's part of it. What makes us so spectacular is each one of us, very much like our fingerprint. None of us will have the exact same life experiences as each other. None of us will have the exact same core values as each other. None of us will have the exact same strengths and limitations. All of these ingredients help to make us what is not only unique, but extraordinary. And when we can learn to embrace that and step into who we are wholeheartedly and be proud and happy and celebrate who we are, that's where we really claim our swagger. That's where that light just shines within you that can't be contained. And it's embracing that and welcoming and being comfortable in your own skin to tell the world, this is me, warts and all. I've had my own issues and trials and tribulations, but that's part of what makes me a work of art.
And I'm going to insert here a beautiful quote that I found in your book. It says, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And I'm going to say it again. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And I think that can really sums up what you've just said. Like your own self-worth, your own identity, and being comfortable. The fact that you are enough, you are phenomenal, right? And just being your own unique self, but rather than, kind of trying to be everybody else, because there's
and I think you're raising a really great point there as well. And when we think about self-worth, there's a couple of things that are really important to help reframe or redevelop a new relationship with our self-worth. And one of them is we have to stop attaching who we are to what we do, what we have, or what experiences we've had. So we are, if you look at the definition of self-worth, there's a really critical word in the definition. It's the idea that we have innate worth. And that means that we are born worthy, period. No conditions required. We are worthy simply because we exist. And that requires a lot of a mindset shift, I think, for most of us, because we've spent our lives connecting who we are to what we do. When we're younger, we might say, hi, I'm Jennifer and I'm 5 years old. So we start connecting it to something tangible. When we get older, we might say, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so and I go to this school. Or as we reach adulthood, we might tell people, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so and I do this for a living.
Yeah.
We've consistently connected our self-worth to something external, and that makes it really vulnerable.
I truly believe so too, because, constantly, yeah, as much as we're very powerful, we're also very vulnerable, right? And
Yes.
and I love the fact that you said we are born just as we are, like 100% already, right? So we're
Yes.
enough, right? And I kind of want to distinguish here, because oftentimes we, I know the quote that I was mentioning from your book, the privilege word, right?
Mm.
Oftentimes, I think the common association with that particular word is entitlement, right? We're not talking about, I don't believe we're talking about entitlement here, right?
No,
Can you
no.
expand it?
We're
Yeah.
talking about privilege as being a gift. So I've had the privilege of working with leaders across the globe, almost as if it's an honor.
Yes.
Or another quote that I love, which is something that I literally live by. It's some of the words that I live by every day. Do not regret getting older. It's a privilege denied to many. So those are the connotations, and that is what I'm talking about when I talk about privilege. It's truly an honor and like an unexpected gift to be savored and cherished. It's not about entitlement.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think every day is truly an unexpected gift. Yeah, because last year, this time, the same date, time in the afternoon, I wouldn't expect that I have the privilege to be speaking with you. The privilege to be sharing.
Me either.
So this empowering talk, with the audience, and hoping that, what doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what you're doing, you can find something of empowerment and inspiration from that. With that note, I think I'm going to share a little bit of your swagger insight that I found in your book, and it was very empowering. It's about a page and a half here, but I just think it's really important, and it hits home with everything that we talked about, and I see it as a Cliff's Notes to life. And of course, I got to share this, right? This is amazing. Okay, so I'm just going to read through. We were talking about self-worth, right? So
Yes.
the point is, when you allow external factors to influence your self-worth, you open your self-worth up to volatility, because those external factors aren't within your control. You've spent your life connecting who you are to what you do, and oftentimes that is the case. Who you are is comprised of much more than just what you do. Self-worth is the belief that you have innate worth, which you mentioned earlier, that you're lovable and valuable as a human being, irrespective of your traits, qualities, or abilities. You're worthy not because of what you accomplish, how you look, or how good you are at the things you do. You're worthy simply because you were born worthy. Okay. Self-esteem, and I love this part, self-esteem and self-confidence aren't the same as self-worth. Self-confidence is the trust and confidence you have in your abilities, qualities, and judgment. Self-esteem is a perception of self that ranges from positive to negative and revolves around how you view your traits, qualities, and abilities. That is so true. And I love how you separate them out, because it's just so important. Self-worth is strongly connected to your self-confidence and self-esteem. When you allow others to determine your worth, you've authorized them to be your judge and jury, while you sit like a defendant in the courtroom, waiting to hear whether you'll be deemed worthy or not. You wear masks out of fear that you're not enough, that your judge and jury will find you guilty of not living up to their exacting standards. The secret they don't want you to know is that when you stop caring what these other people think of you, then you release the power they have over you. They don't want you to know this because they like having the power over you. And it's true. many times.
It is. That is one of the most powerful things, I think, if people get nothing else, if they recognize that, it is so incredibly important. Not easy to do, but once you are courageous enough, there's that word courage again. When you're courageous and bold enough to do it, you will wonder why you didn't do it sooner.
100%. And leading to the next line, courage isn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to do what you're afraid of. So going forward, strong, sure-footed, right? And then from that, I think the foundation, as you mentioned in your book, shifting your mindset is one of the most powerful steps you can take in developing a new relationship with your self-worth. You have to decouple who you are from what you do or what you have. Those are different things. They're a part of you, right? And I love this. A mindset is a set of beliefs, attitudes, or assumptions that shapes how you interact, how you interpret and respond to situations. Your life experiences shape the mindsets you hold. And when you shift your mindset, you can create powerful and profound changes in the way you respond to the world around you. This is so important. And then being your true self is a privilege and not a burden. When you see something as privilege, your entire attitude shifts and you see things from a completely different perspective. Who you are, your authentic self, isn't static. Instead, it's agile and dynamic. So you mentioned the power of 3, patience, practice, and perseverance. I love that. The power of
Key to the power of 3. It's a big theme in the book.
it is. It's so well captured, and I'm gonna print this out and keep at my bedside and keep reading. Yeah, whenever I need to go back to empower myself a little bit. There was one thing mentioned though, you talked about wearing masks, and
Yes.
it immediately comes to mind. It's because of the pandemic, everybody was wearing masks, right? But I think I love the fact that you mentioned that, in life, we're always wearing a mask. We're always acting. Every day we're acting. So humans are the greatest actors of life. Yeah.
Consistently. And I think you see it on social media, you see it everywhere. I mean, even think about, and this is well before we had social media, look at, if anybody has experienced this, in the family I grew up in, we used to get these, my mom still does this. She literally still creates a Christmas letter that she sends out to all her friends and people that she's known for a million years.
That's awesome.
And all the letters talk about are all the things we've done. Think about that. It's constantly saying, oh, we did this and this and this and this and this. Again, constantly putting on this kind of mask or this face of, look at all these great things we accomplished or we did. It's just so ingrained, I think, in our society that we have to portray this perfect face when actually, I think everybody would get on much better and be so much happier and more fulfilled if we just started being ourselves.
Yeah. And that's a very powerful point to make, because I'm thinking of like the makeup industry, and girls, right? As a girl growing up, I was buying beauty products, makeup, right? Trying to cover up a blemish, acne that was obviously not doing so well, just sticking up there, and that's all I could think about it.
That's all we can see, right? It's all you can see.
Right
It's
there.
the
It's
only
like,
thing you can focus on, right?
yeah. But those things are not so important, right? Because we come back down to your self-worth, right? Your self-worth as a person, as a friend, as a mother, as a brother, as a husband, as a partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, grandmother, grandparents, sister, everything, like as a boss, right? As someone's mentor, right? Like, I think it's so important because you share your energy and a bit of you. And when people hang out with different people or are surrounded by different groups of people, we kind of pull from that, those energies and identities, and we're constantly shaping, right? Because you said it's not static, right?
We are constantly. Absolutely. And I think what's interesting about that too, if we think about that and play that out a little bit, how have you ever come across somebody that you've met And they may not have been what you would typically define or how the world might define beauty, let's say,
Yeah.
but they were absolutely beautiful because they were so comfortable in their own skin and were unapologetic about who they are. And to me, that is absolutely spectacularly beautiful.
I think I know exactly what you mean. They're just so attractive
Yes.
because somebody had a list and said these were the requirements of what, being attractive is about, but just their essence of energy is just, it's magnetic.
Right.
You're drawn to that person, right? Kind of thing. So yeah, and I think it has to come from being authentic and organic and being true to yourself, right? So I think
being able to just go to the world, go, this is me.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I mean, if we started to pick things apart, I mean, my nose is crooked. I have, one eye bigger than the other one or whatever. I mean, we've all got, none of us are quote unquote perfect.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'm perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
Right. I'm perfectly me.
Yeah. And that's why I tell people, I said, hey, to know love is to know hate, to know beautiful is to know ugly. And even when there are things that are ugly or a big mess, you can still find beauty in that. Because otherwise,
completely.
how could you know the opposite? It just all be the same. It just be boring. How do you know blue from red and white and green and black, right? So I think it's just a whole bunch of stuff, being able to see all those things, right? And you talk about waking up and seeing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really important to be able to do that, and have those reflections. Yeah, so I think in terms of the mask portion, I think it's a defense mechanism, I guess.
Oh, completely. We're afraid. We're afraid of people seeing the real us because we might not fit their expectations or meet their expectations. And one of the examples I love in the book is from the movie My Week with Marilyn. And if you look at Marilyn Monroe, she's a perfect example of not being able to be her true self. Hollywood created this persona of the blonde bombshell, if you will. And so she was out in the country this one day and she looked with her colleague she was with at the time, or her companion at the time, and said, should I be her? As if she had to transform into what her fans expected her to be, because she was afraid that if she was just her, it wouldn't be enough. Yeah. And I think many of us can relate to that. We feel like we need to be this, whether you're a mom and you feel like you need to be super mom, and you have to do everything and be perfect at everything and have a perfect house and perfectly dressed kids and everybody's on time. I mean, no, just be real. And sometimes allowing yourself to be human and to demonstrate to somebody else that you're going through a crappy time and you're not perfect, that is so incredibly powerful. And that's what people connect with and resonate with.
Yeah. And I think that energy that you're speaking of, I'm thinking of vulnerability.
Yes, it is.
Revealing a vulnerable side of you because it's as genuine, as truthful as it gets. And this is who I am. And
I have a great example of that too. And I do share a little bit of this in the book, but I was, when I was a global leadership consultant, I facilitated in front of leaders at all levels, from aspiring leaders all the way to the C-suite of organizations. And in my mind, well, first of all, I'm a recovering perfectionist. And I say that with a little bit of tongue in cheek because I'll probably be working at that my whole life. But for me, in my mind, I had this image that I had to portray this really intelligent, very capable, strong, expertise, expert in the front of the room when I'm facilitating. And I was at a workshop to work on developing our facilitation skills with other facilitators. And I got the exact same feedback from 3 different people that I highly respected. And they all said the same thing. You need to be more vulnerable in the front of the room. And I looked at them and I went, what are you talking about? Because in my mind, that just didn't work. That didn't make sense. And yet I took it to heart because I knew, one, if I'd gotten the same information, there was something meaningful in it and I need to pay attention. And so the next day I shared a story about my sister, my older sister who passed away, and delivering her eulogy. And I had never shared this story in front of anyone before. So at the time, the emotions were still quite close to the surface, let's say. And I was telling the story and I was able to keep myself composed, just barely. And I looked out in the room and I saw tears welling up in people's eyes in the room with me right then in that moment. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is a human connection. This is what it means to allow yourself to be seen as a human being. We don't need to be perfect. We don't need to be on a pedestal. We need to just be us. And that's what people will resonate with. And that's what they connect with. And I learned right in that moment the power of being willing to share a bit of yourself so that you can connect more deeply with another human being. It was truly life-changing for me.
Yeah, I don't know. And thank you so much for sharing. Even though I wasn't in that room and we are on Zoom, a virtual platform, I have learned quite a bit during the pandemic years that I can still feel you. So I was emotional for you sharing that snippet about you speaking and your vulnerabilities about that sincerely. So thank you for sharing. And I think it's so important that as much as we take the courage, reflect, analyze, and share and learn together, I think the other people that are interacting and receiving, that they find ways to have acceptance, right?
Right.
They cannot always use a benchmark like, all the criteria that we specify or by other people that we've seen in social media and say, oh, well, they're not that. So, I don't see them as that way, right? Like they also need to do that. So if everybody can become more connected with themselves and become more vulnerable and really ask themselves and go through what their own self-worth, self-confidence and all that, okay, and have a deep reflection, I feel like it's going to be a much better world, because then everybody is also going to be accepting to somebody else's vulnerabilities, right?
Completely agree. And, I think it's so interesting that if we were more accepting of ourselves, chances are, to your point, we're going to be more accepting of others and less critical of others. Because, by the way, who are we to be the judge and jury for somebody else? Who gave us that role?
Yeah, we're not.
Right?
Yeah.
We're not.
No.
Exactly. So I think your point is a really good one. If we stopped focusing outside on everybody else and measuring ourselves against everybody else and started just looking at, how can I be the best me I can be right now, here today, given what I have to work with? And then looking at, if I want to progress, if I want to get better, how do I get just a little bit better every single day? Progress is a pace, one step, one day at a time. You don't have to make everything happen right away.
Yeah.
So just think about, how can you be at your best right now today? And how can I get even better tomorrow?
And I think those little tips like journaling or just, writing things down. There's a lot of exercises, which I love in your book, so that you can come back and compare the different phases and times in your life. And I think that's also how you can track your own progress. You are encouraging yourself. I always tell people, whatever you do in your life, you got to be your own bae before anything else. Because when you can be your own bae before anything else, then you can be there. You can be strong enough to be there for other people and be other people's bae. Because unless you're ready to be your own bae confidently, maybe you're not so quite ready to be somebody else's bae.
Well, and what's funny, I joke about this, but if people would literally laugh if they shadowed me for a day in my daily life, because I kid you not, I will be, and it's not always inside my head, I literally coach myself out loud sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I will sit there and go, Jennifer, come on, we can do this. Let's go.
Yeah.
Come on, we've got this. You just start, or whatever it is that I'm working on. And you're right. I mean, sometimes we only have ourselves. We don't have the luxury of having somebody else to coach us or to encourage us. And so when we get that strength within ourselves to be able to do that, we start to recognize the unstoppable force that we really are. And you can do the impossible.
Yeah.
If you start coaching and believing in yourself, first and foremost.
And I love the part that you brought up, the community, because it's so very true. Well, the image and definition of community is something that people strive for and want in their life, right? Who is like, oh, you should have a community, you should build a community. But you know, that's I see that as a bonus. Like, okay, like I feel like one, as a human being coexisting in this globe, I feel like you need to be your own community for yourself. Okay, even if it's
We need
just
to start there, first and
start there.
foremost.
Exactly. That's when you have the right vibration of energies coming in, right? So, and this kind of segue, because I know what was like floating through my mind was like bullying, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of bullying that we talk about, that we see it on the news a lot of times, right? So I think bullying is very much directly related to self-worth. Like,
Oh, 100%, 100% related to it, because what a bully is doing is trying to attack your self-worth.
right.
And if you allow them to, then they will. So, I mean, I was personally I was bullied when I was younger. Now, this was well before we had cyberbullying, obviously, because they used to crank phone call me all the time on the landline. I know I'm dating myself because it was before cell phones. But
so yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's horrible when you're in that moment, especially as a child, when being accepted and having friends and wanting to fit in is really important to you, or you think it's really important to you. But I think what you have to realize about bullying and how important it is to have this strong relationship with your self-worth is to recognize that they only have power over you if you let them. Now, I'm going to say that again. They only have power over you if you allow them to have that power, because you gave it to them. When you recognize this is their issue, not yours, and when you stop feeding into or giving into what they're looking for, which is you reacting to their bullying, sometimes the bullying subsides because they didn't get what they wanted. That was what happened in my case in particular. Over time, they just stopped because I recognized that, one, this wasn't about me. This was about them, and they were upset about something, whatever it was, and that I could choose not to be impacted by it. I had a choice.
Not to be sucked into somebody else's narrative, right? So
that's right. That's right.
Listen to somebody else's stories, but you don't need to be involved or a part of, because you can't really. You're not part of that journey, but you can listen empathetically. And you know, on the subject of bullies, I think perhaps they're also questioning their own self-worth. They don't.
Well, I think that's a great point, right? I think it is, because when you think about, oftentimes people, now, I mean, there are many reasons why people might bully, but one of the many reasons is very much a case of them wanting to bring people down to their level or make themselves feel better by making somebody else smaller. And so there, if you think about that and you analyze that a little bit, they're actually trying to bolster their self-worth by belittling somebody else.
They're trying to make themselves feel better.
Yes.
Feel at ease and at comfort, right? And it's and I'm beginning to even see, you know, a deeper connection that is very much about their self-worth. So if they had a clear understanding about their self-identity, their own self-worth, their self-confidence, and their self-esteem,
chances are they probably wouldn't be bullying somebody else.
Exactly. And then having the self-worth part, the foundation of it, you will be able to not feed into those energies should
That's right.
they arise, right? So
That's right.
that's
That's why it's so important. And that's why it's the first part of the Swagger acronym, self-worth, because it is such a critical piece. If you don't have that really strong relationship with your self-worth first, you're not going to be able to do the other steps in the method or the approach, because that has to take place first and foremost.
that's exactly very true. I think I kind of want to segue in now because we're talking about, growing up and our younger self, right? Jennifer, if you could tell your younger self anything, what would it be?
I think there's a couple of things. One, I would like to tell my younger self that I don't have to be more than I am. I just have to be who I am. And that you're going to go through trials and tribulations, and to lean into those challenges and to embrace those challenges and to recognize that that's part of your magnificent story. And so don't shy away from the things that are hard, but look for them, seek them out, and recognize them as learning opportunities. And the biggest thing I think I would love to tell myself is that you can choose the way you think. And if you learn this at a really young age, the power that you will have as a result is unimaginable. Recognizing that we control our thoughts, they don't control them, means that we can choose where our story goes from here. We get to write it. We're not a passenger. We're actually the leader of our life. I think those would be some of the key things that I would love to tell my younger self.
Yeah. And then the quote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you really are, because that's ever unfolding and evolving, right, as you go along. And I love that because, tying everything together, I see that the choice is your mindset and your thought and the shift of choosing empowerment and positivity over the years, right? And I see your journey as having helped Fortune 500 companies and stuff like that. I guess my question is, as human beings, sometimes we're not always 100%, right? We need some pick-me-ups, right? So I guess how do you continue to choose empowerment, positivity when those times occur? Like, how do you push through, so to speak?
There's a couple things that I come back to. When I was working with leaders across the globe, one of the things that I tried to help them recognize is that it's a privilege to be a leader. So we're going to go back to that word privilege again, not a burden. And I believe that to be true of all of us, because first and foremost, we're the leader of our lives. That is our most important job. Being the leader, CEO, the chairman of the board, the sole shareholder. I mean, we are it of our lives. And so really, I think recognizing that, you move out of being a victim of the circumstances happening around you and take back control and recognize, wait a minute, as the sole shareholder, I have a responsibility to deliver results to the shareholder of my life. So, and as the CEO, I'm also responsible for the performance in my life. So if I'm not happy with the performance I have thus far, then I'm the one that can change it. Only I can change it. No one else. And I can't look to somebody else or blame other people for where I am in my life. Taking that ownership, I think, is so critically important. And once you do that, and once you then realize that it's that life, that the fact that we woke up today is such a privilege, you have a different attitude about life. And you don't focus so much on the things that might not be going the way you had planned. And the other thing that I think is important to really understand, and it goes back to what I used to tell leaders, that it's a privilege to be a leader. Every single every opportunity or every engagement we have with another human being is an opportunity to positively impact that human being. Think about that.
100%.
Every single one of us, you
Yeah.
don't have to be a leader of 100 people or whatever, or a big team. Every time you engage with another human being, you have an opportunity to positively impact that person. Now,
Yeah.
if that's not a reason to kind of feel good about life, or to challenge yourself to say, how many people can I positively impact today? And I don't know what is. So I
Yeah.
think it's those kinds of things that I continually lean on and come back to over and over again as reminders. When I mean, we all get down. We all have days where things don't go exactly as planned, or you get to a point in your journey and you go, wait a minute, this is not exactly as I envisioned it would be. And it's way harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But lean into those things. What can I do today? How can I celebrate this privilege that I woke up today? How can I positively impact someone else today? And when we focus on that, we end up feeling less sorry for ourselves.
Victimizing yourself to a
Yeah.
and I want to share that too. Those things can be very small things, like every
Oh my
day, like
gosh, a smile, smiling at
smile,
someone, just, or telling
opening the
someone
door.
you have a beautiful smile. Have you ever
Yeah.
done that? Like
Yeah.
just some random person, you have a beautiful smile.
Yeah. Or
I mean,
that,
it's
that
just,
that looks great on you. And
and
then
then you see
oh,
their face light up, right?
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's so, and that's what I'm saying is we don't realize the power that we hold just by engaging with other human beings. And we were in New York a while back,
Yeah.
and I tell this story in the book, and we were at a restaurant, it was so busy. And there was a gentleman, I'm not even going to call him a gentleman. He was not a gentleman. He was not a very nice individual. And he was clearly an unhappy person. And he was just berating the bartender because the bartender had not finished all of his drinks before he was starting something else. And the bartender was clearly trying to keep everything moving. I mean, it was packed. And this person was doing the best they can with what they had to work with. Once that person left, I leaned over to the bar and I told the bartender, I said, you know what? I watched what you were doing and I so appreciate that you were trying to keep everything moving. I think you're doing an amazing job and thank you. And that's all I said. That's it. Later on that night, the bartender came by and bought us a cheese tray, my husband and I, for dessert, for our dessert course. And he said, do you have any idea how close I came to quitting? But your words made such an impact and meant so much to me. Thank you. And how much did that cost me to do that? Nothing. It was observing and being willing to actually make a comment.
Yeah. And I love how you shared this, because there are so many moments in life where something someone else says to someone is going to be kind of almost like a life and death
It
situation.
could be a catalyst
It's
for life-changing for them.
Yeah. And
Literally life-changing sometimes.
it's so powerful, even though it can be so insignificant.
We
And
think it's insignificant, right? But we don't know where they are in their journey in their life. And it might be exactly what they needed to hear that day.
and that's so true. It's like maybe, I don't know, somebody, I know when I've been down on things, I'm not really paying attention, and somebody opens the door for me, waiting for me, even though I have no idea who this person is. That
Right.
that means a lot. I stepped
Exactly.
out of it and I was like, wow, this person that probably saw me walking, they waited to open, they didn't have to. I mean, it's not a huge deal. You can open doors gratefully because, we're able to do so, of course. But they're waiting to see that. They see that and they open the door, and that's great, because I'm carrying a whole bunch of stuff, right? And, being the state kind of thing, they acknowledge that. And just like the way you acknowledged and observed,
Yeah.
took it in, and then, communicated, express gratitude to that person. I'm not saying we all have to fake gratitude or fake
Oh,
express.
no, that's the thing. It needs to be sincere and authentic.
Yeah.
Because people can sense when you're being disingenuine, right? I mean, people can feel it. But just think about and go, everyone, just when you get up or when you're getting ready to go outside, think about, how could I just say something to someone that I'm feeling right now. Instead of just thinking about it, how do I actually act on it? How do I say it? How do I demonstrate to somebody whatever it is? These random acts of kindness, I like to call them too, are incredibly, and you know what's interesting? They are powerful, but they also help us feel better about ourselves. Because when we help other people, there are chemicals that are literally released in our brain that they call the happiness trifecta that make us feel good. So when you're working on your self-worth, one of the best things you can do is actually do something nice and kind for somebody else.
100%, because that also adds to your own self-worth, right? Because
Yes.
you're building it, right? And
Yes.
that's in essence the process that affects all our healing and transformation of all our journeys that we're walking together.
Yeah.
I just want to quickly share that I remember, you know, in my earlier years, I was a waitress, and I you know, in the restaurants. And so one time there was a customer that she was actually very rude to me, but I figured, you know, she must be having a hard day. I try my best to empathize, and, you know, of course, she's a customer. You don't engage or ask, you. I don't know what happened, but I was like, okay, I'm just not going to take it personal, because my job here is to serve, right? And, you know, provide a positive, you know, experience for the customer so they can enjoy the meals. And I remember at the time I was just extra nice to her, and she had a bad attitude. I'm not trying to criticize, but that's pretty much what it was. And I think when the bill came, when I dropped it off, she said, she touched my hand, and she looked at me, and she said, hey, I'm sorry that I was, you know, kind of rude earlier. I didn't mean to. I'm just going through some stuff, and I appreciate you being just really nice. Yeah, so thank you very much. So I said, you're very welcome. Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing. I love that story, because I think we underestimate the opportunities and the impact we can have on people's lives. I mean, just think about that. And if each one of us started thinking about positively impacting others, what a difference this world would be. What a difference.
100%. Now I think if you had, you know, a message that you could share for women around the globe, you know, to tell them how they can swagger through life, right? So push through when there's fear holding back, you know, having courage to, no matter where you are, to, you know, continue that pathway. I know it's a lot. It's, is there something that comes to mind? Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I love to tell people is this: you already have everything you need to be at your best, perform at your best, and live your best life. You just need to learn how to use it. And that's what I help people do. And that's what Claim Your Swagger is all about. You don't have to be a new you. You just have to start being you. Unapologetically. Just be who you are. Be who you were born to be. And you are enough, and you matter. And this is not the end, by the way. You get to write where your story goes from here. You're in charge of that, no one else.
That's so beautiful and so empowering. I just gonna go out there. Like, yeah, let's go, right? And I want to, you know, in my humble opinion, I feel like your book and your steps and processes, I think it's going to help everybody. It's not just it's for girls, for boys growing up. And I think as a young girl myself before, you know, and you know, boys growing up, we need mentors, we need role models, we need empowerment, we need inspiration. And I think this book isn't just for an adult, you know, that is to read this book or something like that. I think everybody can take away something from it. So I guess my question next up is, how do you get a copy of book? Are you also working on other projects, you know?
They can get the copy of the book. They can either go to wherever they buy their books, you know, whether it's, you know, online, whatever their favorite retailer is, but they can also go to swaggeru.com. That's Swagger U, the letter U, as in Swagger, short for Swagger University. So swaggeru.com/books. I have multiple links there where they can download and order the book from whatever their favorite site might be. And as far as other projects, one of the things, I just finished recording the audiobook. So we're getting that edited, and I will be getting that released soon. And then this is the first of 3 books. So there will be 2 more books coming out after this. The second one is going to be Develop Your Swagger. The third one's going to be Live with Swagger. So that's more coming. And then there'll be master classes and boot camps and retreats and all kinds of great things surrounding this, so that we can all support one another, and I can continue to encourage and help people along their swagger journey.
So then we're all going to be set for life. It's like, go to book 1, 2, 3. Okay, rotate.
That's right.
Book 2, book 3, book 1. And I think the beauty of it, because I was reading the book, there's exercises that you can download. And so, and I think the way I see it, because I used to be in a mindset where like, oh, there's exercises, oh, it's going to take away time. But no, that's an investment to your self-worth, understanding and connecting with yourself. So I think we all deserve that. You need to allocate and put away some time and dedicate that time to yourself.
We have to start putting ourselves at the top of the list instead of the bottom of our priority list. And when we make our personal development and our self-growth and self-improvement a priority, then you build that time in. You make time for everybody else in your life, but what about you? And when you make time for yourself and you recognize that self-care and self-improvement and personal development is not a nice to have, it's a must-have. And when we get better, we have that much more to give the people that we love and care about and want to help.
100%. And I think it's so important that we continue all of this together. And I just cannot emphasize enough about, you know, this self-worth portion. I know it's just a small chunk of your book.
It is. It's one chapter, but it's an important one. It's an absolutely important one.
Yeah, I see it like as a big tree, and that's the roots.
Yeah.
It's going to grow and support
everything. It's the foundation, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's what it is. So I sincerely thank you, Jennifer, for your time today and for joining us here at Her Stories Untold. It's been a beautiful, almost, I think it just, in an hour already.
Time flies when we're talking about such amazing things.
It's just so empowering and you know, inspirational that we get to talk about these things, and then how to find ways to ensure that information with other people so that they can, you know, just get up, right? And just, again, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, because that's what we are continuing to do and unfold and evolve and shape as we go along, because we're really just the
works in progress. We're continuous works in progress.
Yeah. And we build everything ourselves. So that's really amazing. So Jennifer, I just want to thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for inviting me to join you. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and I hope that the people that listened live or that listen later on, that you find some nugget that you can take away from this to inspire your own journey.
Yes, and that's just really amazing. And what I'm going to do is I will be sharing the links to your website for the book, so people can find out more information about your book, you know, about yourself, of course, and then as well. And please do share with us your podcast once that's been up, because I love to hear all your stories and all your empowerment and talks and whatnot. And I feel like that's really important to share to other people as well. So I'm looking forward to your book 2 and 3 as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day and a fantastic weekend.
You too. Take care. Okay.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.